This is Ray Bradbury, for me, the most evocative, the most persuasive of the science fiction writers. He has gone to space, he has lived in space, in his fertile imagination, off and on, since he was a boy of 9. Is this the way that you wrote the script? I think it is, Ray Bradbury.
Yes, and a lot of other people before me. Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, the great uncles and grandfathers of all of us. When I was down in Houston a few years ago, I discovered in meeting the astronauts that they had read Jules Verne, they had read H.G. Wells, and in a few cases they had read some of my work, which made me feel very good at the time.
But it is astonishing, really, because they are following a script that seems to have been written by various writers over a period of the last half century.
Yes. Well, I look upon the function of the science fiction writer as being the romantic who starts things in motion, and the astronauts are the actors who come along and flesh it out and put bones inside the dream.
You have said that a single invention, the rocket, is redesigning mankind. Would you elaborate on that?
Well, it's redesigning us in the following ways. I'm willing to predict tonight that by the end of the century, our churches will be full again. That's redesigning mankind back in the direction of God again.
Because of space travel?
Because of space travel. Because when we move out into the mystery, when we move out into the loneliness of space, when we begin to discover we really are 3 billion lonely people on a small world, I think it's going to draw us much closer together.
Some people suggest that the very fact that we have now gone into space and have been on the other side of the moon has proved that there is no, well, the Russians themselves have said that proves that there is no God up there.
Well, they're welcome to use any cliches they want to use, and in turn, I hope to be allowed to use my newer cliches. I believe firmly, excitingly, that we are God himself coming awake in the universe. In other words, we exist on a very strange world that we know nothing about. Our theologians have tried to help us understand this. Our scientists have tried to help us understand this. We know nothing. We start in ignorance.
Can man ever feel at home elsewhere than on Earth?
Yes, and he's going to make himself at home first on the moon, then we're going off to Mars, and then we're going to build ourselves large enough ships to head for the stars, and when we do reach the nearest stars and settle there, we'll be at home in the universe. That's what the whole thing is about.
Well, there you go, my friends. That's Ray Bradbury speaking with Mike Wallace right after the Apollo moon landing. Just moments after the moon landings. Walter Cronkite led into this. This is a big deal, right? Ray Bradbury was very excited, and he makes a lot of claims there. We can't know anything about where we live, or we don't know anything about our universe. Is that true? You hear a couple things that seem to be contradictory. An idea of that there's a return to God, but then it's that all of this means that we are God waking up in the universe. A lot of confusion in Ray Bradbury, a very fine writer. Perhaps is that the kind of mind that's required to write science fiction? A confused mind? Probably not. But Ray Bradbury is a very well-known science fiction novelist, and as you can see here, excited to death about the future of humanity. Optimistic. He saw the Apollo program and the American-Soviet space race itself as the launch of world peace. Ray Bradbury thought that this amazing new technology and our leap into the void of space would reunite mankind. And in the glow of the moment, he told Mike Wallace, what you just heard there, I think it's going to draw us much closer together. The idea that space travel would energize mankind in ways that only warfare had done before. Theologian and author Tony Reinke writes, space travel reached Tower of Babel-like heights, drawing together the collective aspirations of mankind. Some said mankind could now cast off the old traditional myths of this planet and reach for new planets. We could finally discard those old, dated, dead religious rituals and grab for immortality through scientific discovery, through space travel. And today, it's through alien disclosure. Well, on live television, humanity watched together what was presented as the first moonwalk. But did it unify the world? Did it unify nations? Today we carry more computing power and a more powerful communications platform in our pocket than all of NASA and all of the U.S. government possessed at the time. Imagine that in your pocket. So has our ability to build amazing technologies or our ability to make amazing cosmic discoveries brought humanity closer together? Quite often when astronauts have returned from space, mostly from low Earth orbit, they report experiencing what is called the overview effect, or an overwhelming sense of the reality of our position as truly helpless creatures, completely dependent on the sustenance of our planet. And they experience a metaphysical shock of seeing the Earth from a distance, a view very few human beings will ever get. Some say no human beings have ever seen it. We'll leave that debate for another time. Seeing the Earth hanging there alone in the limitless empty blackness in every direction, shielded from the vacuum and certain death by a relatively and perilously thin atmosphere. That's called the overview effect. It causes those who experience it to question the terrestrial boundaries, wars, international tensions of humanity. They all say that if everyone could just see the Earth from space, then we would surely all get along. As Wendell Berry said in his essays, NASA may offer extremely expensive mystical experiences to astronauts, but the buzz never translates into global peace. From a distance, the world looks peaceful, but it is rocked by localized human discord. Yuval Noah Harari says that humanity has experienced a halt to world wars over the past several decades since these Apollo program. He says it's due to the rise of the knowledge economy. As science and innovation became nation's most lucrative resource, wars became more limited to the few regions where material-based economies remained. The false environmentalist movements tell us that our problems are far more drastic than a world war. They say the planet itself is dying and becoming a liability to the future of humanity. Oh, if they only knew how right they actually are. And so we have to tell them that. We have to tell them that they're right. There is a problem, but it's not the climate. But there's still optimism in space exploration, deceived as they may be. Men like Elon Musk say all it would take to make the world a better place is to be a spacefaring civilization out among the stars. If you knew we were forever confined to Earth, that would be very sad. Unquote. Musk and his disciples believe wholeheartedly in the building of a new ark, a SpaceX rocket that will take people to Mars. According to Musk's biographer, Mars is the comprehensive, sweeping goal and unifying principle over everything he does. Now, there's nothing wrong with technology, right? Evil isn't in the technology, it's in the hearts of human beings. Still yet, we don't know enough about the immaterial realm to know what a demon can actually possess or not. But space travel has become a source of false hope in a false gospel of salvation from afar. Alien disclosure, many believe, will unify humanity too, will end warfare and will bring meaning and true happiness to our lives. It will provide humanity with an escape pod before our oceans boil away and the planet becomes inhabitable. Space travel, alien disclosure, and the Sound of Freedom Warriors for God movement today, claiming to be shutting down the world's human trafficking rings. Well, this is our only hope. How dare you speak against such movements? How dare you speak against alien disclosure? How dare you speak against Tim Ballard? They say. This is how we save ourselves, right? By believing in these man-made saviors. Mankind in 2023 trusts the potential of technology far more than God. Ranke writes, we're surrounded by 100 billion to 2 trillion galaxies, if those numbers mean anything at all to you. In a physical space, a real universe stretching across at least 90 billion years by our estimations. Inside this unfathomable expanse, we call one tiny blue marble home. We can propel ourselves at 25,000 miles per hour to another rock in the expanse, but there we will find just another rock, another big round nothing, another reminder of the desolation and the emptiness. To some, these new rocks are blank canvases for humanity to remake itself, autosoterism or self-salvation. But even with this longing for transcendence within us, and even in the ambition of space travel, we just meet more darkness. Apart from God, space travel and alien disclosure launches us into a bulging emptiness that continues to expand at the speed of light. As we gaze through telescopes, we're met over and over again with an endless expanse, an endless horizon of large, unexplored, desolate rocks and orbs of gases. The deeper we look into the blackness of outer space, the more we meet our aloneness, the more we understand how isolated we are, the more we realize how unique and special we are to whoever put us here. But mankind is very religious, and his faith is in those rocks hanging in the darkness, and in the salvation that's surely to come from our gray extraterrestrial brothers, or maybe it's the tall blonde Nordics from the other side of Venus, or maybe it's the interdimensional light beings that are beaming love and light to humanity from across the cosmos. If we would only take the time to stop and meditate and invite them in, we could have communion with the builders of those craft David Grush has not seen. Human hearts grasp at innovation to find hope for the future. We see this misplaced hope in the storyline of space exploration, in the delusions of Agenda 21 climate activists, in the wide-eyed faces of alien disclosure buffs, and we also see it in Scripture. The Bible is not silent on this issue. The infinite God of the universe is unimpeded by physical boundaries. He's omnipresent. He's always with his people. He's present in heaven. He's present on earth. And he's present in every one of these how many ever billions or trillions of galaxies. He's not bound by time and space. God is also our invincible Redeemer. He's both close to us and also incontestable in heaven. God is so far out of the reach of mankind's collective rebellion that he is untouched by Babel's tower. He's untouched by all of our dreams of alien disclosure and salvation from the tall blondes or the grays or the light beings. God exists in an unapproachable light, undimmed by technological advances in any age, and yet he's also near. Out of this technology, out of our own knowledge of the sovereign, secure, gracious, and omnipresent God, we remain confident in the face of all human tech. We see it in Psalm 20, where David proclaims his conviction in verses 7 and 8. Some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They collapse and fall, but we rise and stand upright. Technology becomes a religion when it's rooted in an ever-deepening desire to control everything about our world and ourselves, even our own evolution. Science unleashes new powers to destroy life and new dreams of becoming eternal beings through transhumanism. But for all its growing power, the gospel of technology stands at a face-off with the gospel of Jesus Christ. For technology to reach its final eschatological hopes, it must shove Christ aside. Alien disclosure seeks to do just that. And now it can. Futurist, historian, homosexual atheist, World Economic Forum advisor Yuval Noah Harari says, we don't need to wait for the second coming in order to overcome death. A couple of geeks in a lab can do it. If traditionally death was the specialty of priests and theologians, now the engineers are taking over. One gospel replaces the other by overcoming death. Technology replaces Christianity as a matter of necessity, says transhumanist Ray Kurzweil, because the primary role of traditional religion is rationalizing the tragedy of death as a good thing. First, now that's a really weak and ignorant interpretation of Christianity by Ray Kurzweil. For such an intelligent man, he's no expert when it comes to Christianity. And therefore, to make a claim on Christianity like that shows a sort of naivete on his part, on all of the transhumanists' part. We never rationalize death. Death is our nemesis, our tyranny, and our enemy to be finally defeated by our coming King. 1 Corinthians 15:26. But we also know that one day death will be spoken about like a myth. The transhumanists and alien disclosure buffs, as C.S. Lewis wrote, have not found an answer to death, only more fascinating diversions to distract man from his helpless state of mortality. Technologists say that we don't need someone who has died to defeat death. All we need are a couple of geeks in a lab to stop the death clock inside ourselves. The Savior of humanity will be humanity. We need no gods. We need engineers. We stand on the brink of self-redemption. With that belief, we come full circle and find ourselves standing again on Babel's peak among a throng of the world's strongest minds, the self-made Superman, ready to storm heaven and usurp the needless God. And by snapping the reins of evolutionary development, man is in full gallop to realize, as Carl Trueman writes, Nietzsche's dream of a world where human beings are called to transcend themselves, to make their lives into works of art, to take the place of God as self-creators and the inventors, not the discoverers of meaning, unquote. We will all become Ubermensch, supermen, superior beings, self-invented, self-glorified, self-enthroned, self-immortalized citizens of Babel. For all of this technological process or progress, what is required? Well, faith. They are a movement of all of it. Transhumanists, alien disclosure buffs, scientists materialist scientists, they're very religious. Their beliefs require great faith. The gospel of technology asks only that we put our trust in the full technical control of all reality. Trust in technological improvements. Go along with them. Adopt, adapt. Don't resist. Don't question. Don't fret if technological progress outpaces ethics. Right? As we came through the Enlightenment, rationalism became cold and sort of boring, so we had the Romantics come in, and although they both threw away the transcendent moral lawgiver, they transplanted him into us. It's us. We're the creators of it. And so we just tinker with the science until we get it right. Never mind hundreds of millions of deaths that were caused in the 20th century through just that, atheistic communism, tinkering with the system. Give the technologists your faith, or at least give them your blind trust. That's what they ask. So just as there is religious fundamentalism, there is tech fundamentalism, climate fundamentalism, UFO, UAP, and alien disclosure fundamentalism. Paul Virillo, quoted in a 1996 Wired magazine article, said, "Modern man, who killed the Judeo-Christian God, the one of transcendence, invented a God machine, Deus ex machina, a God from the machine, a technological savior. Our machines will arise at the right moment to redeem us, or so we're promised." This techno-gospel of self-evolution calls for an end to salvation in Jesus Christ. The doctrine of sin and depravity must go. 30 years before C.S. Lewis, Herman Bavinck smelled this cultural trend in the air. The idea that man is radically corrupt must be saved by Christ and can never become holy and happy by his own power. That is the most demoralizing of all the articles in the Christian faith and ought to be opposed and eradicated with determined strength. The gospel of post-human self-delivery of the future is not Jerusalem. It's not the city of God. It's Silicon Valley or a city on Mars. So that's, let me just welcome my lovely wife, Summer, to the show here.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. We got another amazing donation, by the way, from Jason Casper, so thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, thank you for that. We appreciate that. And welcome to the show, my friends. You can support this work with the links in the description of this video. You can do super chats as Jason has done there. Download the Armor of Truth mobile app if you'd like to get notifications when we go live, wherever we go live, or when we upload new content, whether it's written or video or audio podcasts. You can find it all at the Armor of Truth mobile app.
Yes, and we're also hoping to have James ROGUSKI on. We're trying to coordinate a time and date for that, so maybe it'll be at the end of this week or early next week, so stay tuned for that, for the updates on the pandemic preparedness situation, because as you know, maybe some of you have seen, they developed in the White House an official office for that. So that's
Office of Pandemic Preparedness. Oh, goody.
Yeah,
I'm glad they thought of it.
Mm-hmm. And they're doing it quietly too, or they're hoping to do it quietly. So.
All right, well, in the news here today, folks, all kinds of things happening. We'll be talking a little bit also later this week about how Neil deGrasse Tyson declares gender as a spectrum, so this astrophysicist steps outside of his expertise and makes a fool of himself. And also how in Australia they're going to allow prescription MDMA or Molly or ecstasy or whatever you call it. Going to allow it by prescription, and also
for couples therapy
and magic mushrooms as well. Psilocybin will be, or I guess other kinds of mushrooms as well, will be available for some people with mental illness.
Right. So like as all of this restrictive stuff is happening, they've got to make it look like there's this, this expansive, like we're evolving kind of, we're becoming more free as a society. So we're going to use ketamine and MDMA for our treatments now.
Yeah, that'll work out well. What could go wrong? Well, Donald Trump was indicted yesterday. We thought we might need to mention this now. We'll cover this in more depth later. But indicted on felony charges on Tuesday for working to overturn the results of the 2020 election and the run-up to the to whatever you call that thing that happened at the Capitol on the day after the 5th of January. You just can't say those words here. Funny things happen to your video. So they're accusing him of conspiracy to interfere with I forget the exact. It's probably right here, but it's several conspiracy charges to shut down the official change of transfer of power. Right, so this is ongoing. It's never going to stop, and it just doesn't seem to matter to those people who support Trump. It doesn't seem to matter to really most of the nation, because his numbers just keep rising. So in that vein, as we talk about Donald Trump, and a lot of the people that are supporters of Donald Trump are also really behind the movie Sound of Freedom, and believe that by supporting that movie you can help end human trafficking.
Well, part of his administration is a part of that movie, as we've uncovered. Yeah,
that's Tim Ballard. We'll mention a little bit more about that in just a second. But now, what's that got to do with UFOs? just hang on right there, you'll see. But people have really strong emotions about this topic. When we're talking about human trafficking, people have really strong emotions about alien disclosure. But emotions are really easily corrupted. Our emotions are not to be trusted when it comes to matters of faith and morality. We can be blinded by emotion easily. Jeremiah 17:9 essentially says, don't trust your heart. Your heart will lead you in the wrong path. Right? The heart wants what the heart wants. Yeah, it does. It does, and that's very rarely righteousness. Our emotions can blind us from logic and reason. Right? You have to set aside the progressive mainstream media propaganda and actually investigate the film Sound of Freedom to see that Ballard is not a reliable man. For those of you who might be hearing this for the first time here, just check back in the Armor of Truth Live playlist. We've just covered this for the past couple weeks. This is not a movement you need to be supporting, and I didn't think that at first. I was wanting to be really careful, right? I thought, well, it's just, the movie can't hurt anything, right? And if it brings awareness, that's good. That doesn't necessarily follow. And we found out Ballard is not a reliable man, and that his whole operation is built on deception from the start. His movie, people say, well, this is really a docudrama. It's like there's some things that they had to play up for the movie and all that, but no, it's all founded on a deception. Check out our recent shows for that, for those details. Because the film is based on Ballard's false claims, so that's why the film itself is also misleading. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or the NCMEC, went international in 1999 and is now partnered with law enforcement. Now, the ICMEC was launched by Hillary Clinton and Tony Blair. In 2009, the Clinton Global Initiative partnered with the Polaris Project, and by 2014, they created a global modern-day slavery database of organizations in nearly 200 countries to monitor human trafficking. Also in 2009, a company called Amber Ready Incorporated selected the Podesta Group to be the PR company for this database, for this method, for this procedure, for this technology. They would be responsible for promoting cell phone technology, which created a database of children to keep their information on a file. Right? Database all the children. What could go wrong? Well, within 9 years of this organization's establishment, human trafficking went from around, and it's hard to get good numbers on it, but these are estimates. But you can see it went from around a $30 billion a year crime or industry to $150 billion a year crime industry. In 2014, President Obama assigned the task of how to manage this gathered intelligence, all of this data on children. He gave the responsibility to John Podesta. That's all we'll say about that for now. This group manages and runs Polaris, the ICMEC and the NCMEC, the same groups that Angel Studios, producers of The Sound of Freedom, are sending people to support, to donate to, as a way to combat human trafficking. And the billionaire, Carlos Slim, who's been funding who's funded Ballard's movie. It was also Jean-Paul DeJoria, that's the Paul Mitchell guy. Listen, folks, the people who have funded Tim Ballard all along and have funded the movie are the same people who have funded the Clintons and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the people that funded Sound of Freedom are the same people that are funding the surveillance of you, right? The lockdowns and just the overall tyranny in the world right now. It's not a left-right issue. Now, on YouTube and in the media, they play it like it's not a left-right issue. If you think it is, look into the Franklin cover-up. Greg Reese did a pretty good job of this on his report.
The Reese report.
The Reese report, yeah. The Franklin cover-up from the 80s. You know, this was a Republican-led scandal of the same kind. Use of underage persons, and that's the term we're going to use here to keep the video as safe as we can, has always been the go-to method for those who want to control politicians. Human trafficking. Now, here's this stat again you need to know. Human trafficking of children increased 500% since all of these organizations and Tim Ballard's organizations have come onto the scene. That is a problem. And there's way more than that. These are not just stabs in the dark, wild claims. You need to check out our videos. Or Lynn Packer. Just search for Lynn Packer on YouTube. He's made it his job. He's an investigative reporter. You'll see it all there. Watch his videos. The group that is funding Sound of Freedom is the same group that is pushing a totalitarian surveillance state on you right now. Don't let your emotions cloud your ability to think. You should stand only on Scripture as your foundation for all relevant truth, for knowledge of God, knowledge of salvation, and how to live in this fallen world as a Christian. Okay, now please note this too. On our channel, our backup channels, go subscribe to our backup channel, True Normal TV. You'll see there, we've got a show there called Prepare for an Alien Encounter Now Before It's Too Late. Now this is where Summer and I went into great detail, showing how the Alien Disclosure movement is connected to Agenda 21, let's just basically, it's the New World Order. It's the new United Nations and World Health Organization movements. It is all connected. Go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, we talk about SETI, we talk about the Artemis Accords, we talk about how it's related to surveillance and how they want to have control over the skies.
Yeah.
And that,
exopolitics.
Yes, indeed. They have the space treaty and, they've got the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals involved in this. So guys, this is the United Nations.
Right. Now, what we're talking about here today, what I wanted to make sure we got to today, so I want to hustle through this part. By the way, Sound of Freedom has now brought in over $150 million, and it will now be released internationally. So it earned its place. I'll tell you, there is a much better movie that you need to be seeing in the theaters now. Summer, what is it? Essential Church. I caught her off guard. I wasn't.
I was looking at some notes.
We went last Friday.
Yes.
We went Friday night to see the Essential Church movie.
Yeah, it was great.
It's good. And guess who we saw in the movie? Guess who in the movie? This was really a cool moment for us because I've never seen anybody bring. It was Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah.
They made reference to Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah.
The 4 stages of how you subvert a nation: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization.
Yeah, they had that in the Essential Church movie. It was really impressive. I mean, at some points you felt like you were actually watching one of the old YouTube truther videos. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty incredible. So definitely go support that movie, guys. Check it out.
That is the film that people need to be rushing to the theaters to see. Now, what do all these things have to do with technology and alien disclosure and human trafficking? Well, let me lead you into this. Here's a short video from the Sean Ryan podcast. Folks, you cannot trust the alternative media and just your average podcasters out there today. As well-meaning as they may be, and I like Sean Ryan, I like these guys, but listen, either they're not paying attention. I'm not going to accuse them of just trying to get views because Ryan doesn't have any problem getting views. But you've got to be better. You've got to pay closer attention. If you offer your audience a lot of speculation and claim to be there to take the place of the mainstream media, you're not doing your audience any favors. Listen to this.
Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent.
They gave us, told us the 30-second sign. We're all hooked up and ready to go. John Master's got his arm up, getting ready to hit me in the back. And then we see shuffling, and I'm only one of 12 guys that I jump with every time.
He filed a classified complaint under oath, and the Intelligence Community Inspector General said that he found the complaint urgent and credible.
A guy from the back shuffles his way to the front, and it's one of the escorts. He is unmistakable. You can't. I mean, really? You know.
Yeah.
I think it gives weight to a lot of the people that have come forward and talked about having direct first-hand experience. That should be investigated now.
No, it moved very rapidly at any speed, or rather any direction it wanted to go. Why it could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
When you saw this thing take off, I mean, do you have any estimation of speed?
No, it was faster. It was the fastest thing I've ever seen.
And they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
the Whistleblower Protection Act that has been put forward in the National Defense Authorization Act. I mean, this is what it's for.
And the gear that they had was black OTV vests. They had black camouflage utilities.
So what you're saying is there would have been no they were professionals.
Yes,
there would have been no Mexican standoff where if they fired, they're shooting into their other squad. They had perfect angles.
Yes, they did.
To where both sides could engage you.
Yes.
All right, so that's a little bit that's shown right now. Here, let's dive into this. So
memory or something.
Whoa, slow down there, Niara. All right. This is why you can't trust the alternative media. This is once again redacted. Very disappointed in redacted. Right there, this is one of the main culprits of a huge alternative media where they got 2 million subscribers today. They're here, to replace the mainstream media to give you the truth. Well, how do you know which report is true and which one is a bunch of hogwash when they offer you stuff like this?
My next guest has a stunning story to tell about our government's involvement with UFOs, extraterrestrials, secret moon bases, and yes, human trafficking, one of the most lucrative businesses in the world, all tied together. It might be uncomfortable for some of you to watch what we're about to discuss, but I want you to watch this with an open mind. We now have more whistleblowers who've come forward to confirm the stories that you're about to hear. They're supporting evidence and documents. And
to watch with an open mind is to suggest that what we need to do is to just listen and accept what's being said objectively. No, we don't have to do that. If we have a standard of truth to apply to what's being said. So this is Niara Isley, and we're going to move through some of these comments rather quickly, and I want to show you where Clayton absolutely knows that what he's covering here is silly, and you'll see it later. So here's an establish of her bio.
Down. And then what was the moment that changed your life forever? Did it happen there at the Air Force, or did it happen before that?
It really happened there. I mean, I did have childhood ET abductions, alien abductions, if you want to call it that. And that was disturbing enough, and that's a whole different story. But today we're going to focus on these things that happened to me in the military. And
all right, so she establishes that she had abductions when she was younger, and let me move forward because there is a religion attached to all this. Make no mistake about it. It's a spiritual movement.
Contract situation. I was having really.
I'll show you what her job, to make it quicker. What her job was, she was a radar specialist. And so what she described here was that she was tasked with, she would be brought out in the middle of the night, brought to the radar station and told to try to track certain craft that were being tested, I guess. So that's kind of the foundation of what her job was in the military in the late 70s and early 80s.
Severe heart palpitations, and it would feel like somebody was strangling me at the same time. And I couldn't figure that out, but it was really a nasty attack to have, and it would happen periodically. And I finally learned to control it with pranayama, breathing exercises, yogic types, and managed to get it to go away. But it has resurfaced in the last few years, just a little bit here and there. But the memory of that was actually hooked to an actual memory that surfaced in 2017, where I finally remembered that I was being sexually assaulted and strangled and smothered at the same time.
So this is her experience in the military, sexual assault. She goes on to explain how she was drugged with something that she describes a psychedelic kind of experience. So right off the bat, we have a lot of issues with the testimony that might follow all of that. I'm not saying that she's not telling you what she believes happened. Heart's desperately is desperately wicked. Who can you can't understand your own heart, right? You can't. Your emotions. We're terrible eyewitnesses, human beings. We get most things wrong. We get the generalities right, but let me not get too far off base here. Let's go to 9 minutes.
These things could be tracked, and they could
be by the best of the best, right? So presumably they're testing. I mean, this is conjecture, right? But it seemed like they're testing these craft, and they're bringing out the best of the best, to track it and see if they could.
Think about it this. if they can't be tracked and they're armed with various types of weapons, directed energy weapons or lasers or anything else like that, and they can't be tracked, then they can do a lot of damage because no tracking radar can keep a lock on them.
Right.
So that's a little bit more about what she was doing for her job. Now, let's jump in right here. Come on.
On the deck of the radar van, looking up in the night sky, not talking to each other. We were too scared to do that. Looking up there, and there was craft in the sky. There was a certain number of craft. I would say anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe not quite as many as 15.
So
but
this is describing what she experienced one night when she was brought out to track these craft. All right, and then here at this mark here, at the 15-minute mark, she describes being taken to what she believes is Area 51 and drugged. You're still wondering what this has to do with human trafficking. I know. Just hang in there.
Old military types of stuff, like, you wouldn't expect it, not new stuff. And then some guy in a white lab coat came in the same door I had come through, walked past the security guard at the foot of the table, walked up beside the right side of my head, stay calm, in a dead monotone voice, and said, and when he got up beside the right side of my neck, he came up with one smooth move, and he had a hypodermic needle hidden in the sleeve of his lab coat, and he injected me in the side of the neck, and whatever the chemical was went straight to the brain, and I went immediately into shock, and suddenly there's two security guards on either side of me pulling me up by my arms and taking me out this other door, and outside the other door was a very long staircase down, and they dragged me down the stairs. I'm like half walking, half being dragged. At the bottom of the stairs there was like this little room or booth, and they shoved me in there, shut the door, locked it, and I had just enough cognitive ability to notice that there was like a big window looking thing, but on my side it was mirror, and I thought, man, they're looking at me go through this in a one-way glass. So I went through the effects of that injection pretty much curled up on the floor screaming.
Now she goes on to say that this is repeated. This happened to her several times. Now for the big reveal.
The grand finale. The grand finale.
18-minute mark. Now, I just want you to pay close attention to Clayton when she describes this experience here. He knows. He knows this is silly, but he still offers it to his 2 million viewers as the alternative to the mainstream. No, this is no alternative to mainstream media. And this is not to say that a lot of the things they report are not helpful and good. But folks, if you've got 99% truth, let's just say 99% healthy food and 1% poison, it's going to hurt you.
Call my handler. I hate that term.
Yeah.
But and then there was, over this 3-month time period where I couldn't remember anything, I think I must have gone through this same scenario a few times during that 3-month time period. And then there was the time when they put me on a craft. They took me down to this big hangar, and there was an ET craft, an extraterrestrial saucer-shaped craft in it. And down there on the hangar floor, this blonde security guard handed me this handful of silver-looking garments. He says, put this on, take your clothes off and put this on. So I had to do that right there in front of everybody walking around. And so I put these silver clothes on, and they must have been of extraterrestrial manufacture or something, because once I had them on, they fit themselves to my body. They seemed really loose and baggy. As soon as I had them on, it was like they fit. They just fit. And like they almost had their own, I don't know, memory or something, or their own way of fitting itself. And then I got on the craft. There were boots and gloves that came with that outfit. And I had the gloves in my hand, I had the boots on. I got on the craft, and I was instructed to lay down on the floor for the trip that we were going on. And there were 2 other guys in there laying on the floor too. So basically, wherever we were going, we were being taken like cargo. We didn't get to sit in a chair. We had to lay down on the floor like a piece of cargo. And we were taken to the moon.
Does it?
I gotta stop.
Right.
I gotta stop it here, because I just look at. That's a good pause. You see Clayton, right? You see that he's holding back. He's holding back a smile. He's holding back he's laughing inside. He's realizing right here. I don't know if he interviewed this lady without knowing what her story was. Probably not. But Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, remember in the late 80s, early 90s, when you had Bill Cooper coming out, and he was the one that sort of like put into the public consciousness this alien collusion with secret governmental forces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was this idea that the quote unquote Illuminati conspirators were not only, that they had not only invented alien threats for their own gain, but actively conspired with extraterrestrials to take over the world. So that was part of his first with Behold a Pale Horse. Yeah. So it's almost like they're initiating a new crop of people into this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, this is what this is doing. This is the same stories that we've been hearing for decades.
That's exactly right. You've got Stephen Greer, who I'll show you in just a moment. Stephen Greer is just, he's got a whole new generation of people to believe his story. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the last piece of this.
Does it say, I mean, it sounds amazing.
Just watch Clayton as she says it's he's trying to hold it back.
And
does it say, I mean, it sounds amazing to just say that out loud, that we were taken to the moon.
Yeah, it does.
At gunpoint. You were forced to do this.
Yeah.
You were forced to do this.
There weren't guns at this point because, well, there were guns, but we weren't being actively threatened. We just knew that if we didn't do as we were told, that we'd be in serious trouble and we could die.
Okay, so there you go. And she goes on to say that it was a 20-minute trip, to the moon, one way, 20-minute trip to the moon.
And clothes that insta-fit.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have some of those, wouldn't you?
That'd be great.
Now, again, there's a religion here. Let's go right up here just another minute.
The religion of I want to believe, want being the word to emphasize.
Listen to this piece right here.
Sense of what went on, and I have enough that may cause me to research. Once I remembered stuff, caused me to do 14 years of research into what the heck happened to me out there and how it could happen in the United States of America and in what social and political context. And after 14 years of research, I can tell you I know lots.
And you've written a book on
this?
this.
A little bit like it. I wrote a book on it, yeah. And I wrote a book on it divided into 3 parts. One is called The Experiences. Part 2 is called Healing, the Journey to Within. And Part 3 is called Awakening. And
there you go.
Because for me, this was kind of like a shamanic awakening. Just to go through this trauma and start processing through it, and then to kind of come out on the other side and think, wow, the implications for higher consciousness and all of this are just amazing. And so I kind of took that, and I've always been a spiritual person anyway.
How does being taken equal higher consciousness?
I don't know, but yeah, I don't.
The logic.
The fact that she had a psychedelic
equal C.
Well, the fact that she had a psychedelic experience, maybe. And I don't know why that's the assumption, but she said it was, like you heard, a shamanic awakening. She goes on to say that what you need to do, you need to question reality. Keep an open mind. Folks, you're not intended to go through life with your mind open. At some point in your life, you're supposed to clamp down on something that's true. Right? You can't accept everything. You've got to have a standard of truth. Now, the human trafficking part.
Be respectful of your time, which is the human trafficking element of all of this. As I talked about at the beginning, we had some testimony that came forward. Michael Herrera, former U.S. Marine, came forward and admitted to...
I've listened to Michael Herrera's testimony on the Sean Ryan podcast, and Herrera's a believable guy. I once again, I think what happened to him is something that he believes happened to him and something that he really saw. But all the the stuff that's attached to it, Summer, is that a Sustainable Development Goals logo on his lapel?
It sure looks like it.
I don't know what it is.
It is.
But it looks like it. I don't know.
That looks like an SDG ring.
Maybe it's something else.
No, it looks like that's what it is.
It might be. All right, well.
These off-the-books
for sure.
paramilitary, who knows who they were, as his group, his U.S. Marine, 6 of them, stumbled across these guys who were using some sort of advanced aerial craft, an alien reverse engineered craft, and it looked like that they were human trafficking, gathering humans together and placing them on board these craft, which was an absolute stunning revelation. But of course, we've been following the human trafficking story here on our show, which again is a $154 billion a year industry, one of the biggest industries in the world. When you were taken to the moon base, what did you see there? And does this comport with some of this testimony on human trafficking using these advanced vehicles?
All right, now she goes on and really gives nothing here about the connection between the the moon base in human trafficking, other than that she was being trafficked there. It seems like her description of what happens on the moon is not anything that, in fact, she doesn't describe the moon. She just describes in the building. So, it seems like this poor lady was put through some kind of traumatic experience, and it's troubled her over her life, but she hasn't been to the moon, right? She was part of an experiment. Clearly, if this really happened at all, then the most likely explanation is that it was an experiment of some kind. Now, Sean Ryan has had Stephen Greer on his channel twice. Listen,
300 and never have a sonic boom and no heat on the outer section of it. These are very advanced technologies. Now, those began to be studied back long before I was born, and I turned 68 this week, so you can imagine how long we've had these things. We actually mastered gravity control in October 1954.
He does this. We mastered gravity control. In October of '50, this is what Greer has done his whole career. He was a doctor right here in our hometown, and when I got concussions playing football, that was the doctor that treated me. It's weird, it's a weird kind of and so that was back in the late '80s, and it was 1992 when he got involved with all of this. He just repeats the same things over and over. Now, why is Greer a problem? Well, because he's going to teach you how to commune with these beings.
Thank you. This has been brilliant, Stephen. One last thing popped up while we did that.
I forgot my timestamp here.
And so become aware of the awareness.
By the way, become aware of the awareness. Okay, what he's doing right here is called the CE5 protocol, where they're meditating to call in aliens.
The pure state of consciousness, watching the breath, hearing my voice, perceiving your own self.
Receive yourself, folks.
How is it that your own consciousness can perceive itself? And now become aware that quiet, deep consciousness is in fact universal, a singularity, and that my conscious awareness and yours and all that live and exist
Wow, they're really into it.
And so as we let go of the boundaries of space and time, we can traverse the cosmos free as a bird on the wings of the infinite self.
Birds can't fly in
beyond
space.
space and time. This infinite and eternal light of
free as a space
open
bird.
Yourself so you can be possessed
and if we
by
see
other forces.
an extraterrestrial person or persons or world or spacecraft, invite them with respect and with honor.
So invite the demons right on
and
in.
Love and oneness to come to your location and to interact with you and your people for the purpose of creating a time of universal peace on earth and in the heavens.
And so there we are, full circle, my friends. Ray Bradbury to Stephen Greer, the desire, the hope that we can be one, all one.
The oneness theology.
Right. If we want to find out, do aliens exist? What's the biblical perspective? You have to define terms. Aliens would mean a sentient being. Stephen Greer says they're light beings, right? But in the news, right, what the Congress is talking about, what Grush is talking about, are sentient moral agents that can choose right and wrong. They're just analogs of humanity, really, what they are. Living beings from somewhere other than Earth. And a UFO or UAP, a craft, we refer to a vehicle used by such beings. It's not scientifically impossible for these things to exist. Published science to this day has given no indication that they do, though. So this has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with reality. The Bible doesn't mention extraterrestrial alien life at all, but it does mention angels and demonic forces, which are, in a sense, not of this world. This is not the kind of alien extraterrestrial life that most people are talking about when the subject comes up. But nevertheless, the Bible makes no mention whatsoever of aliens from other planets who might be visiting us. Scripture speaks of God creating our home planet, Earth, for humanity, and humanity's purpose is to praise and worship God, to glorify God. Naturalistic science assumes that the universe is extremely large, extremely old, and capable of generating life from non-living matter through an entirely natural process. The assumption that the universe is infinite, it's always been, is logically silly. It cannot be infinite because an infinite amount of time cannot already have been exhausted and arrive at the present. Does that make sense? Infinite time would be limitless, inexhaustible, and thus cannot have been exhausted. You can't get to the end of infinity, right? One could never traverse an infinite sequence of time units, an infinite number of seconds, minutes, or hours to arrive at now. I give this analogy: if you went into a sealed up room and you found a warm cup of coffee and a candle burning, a room that it's a thought experiment, right? You go into the room, no one's ever been in the room, and you find a warm cup of coffee and a candle burning, you would know that something started that process. That's what our universe is, right? And we can see that the candle's burning down, the coffee is warm but cooling. That's the state of our universe. That means it had a beginning. The impossibility of infinite past time, of having already traversed an infinite time span, doesn't mean that future time will not go on forever, because this is the biblical worldview, right? Future time is potentially, not actually infinite, right? We'll live on for eternity in glory with our Creator. In other words, it is infinity in progress, something that will move toward infinity but never arrive. You'll never get to the end of it. So it poses no problem, like the claim of having already traversed an infinite time span. It doesn't mean that God has not always existed. His eternality is not one of infinite time, but one of either timelessness or a different kind of time that has no metric that we know about, right? God is immaterial. He's not made of matter. He's timeless. He's outside of time. But they would suggest that life ought to exist in many, many places in the universe. Given the theoretical abundance of life out there, we should have encountered it by now. This is known as the Fermi paradox. It sums up the self-contradiction between many secular assumptions about life in the universe. So far as has been publicly revealed, humanity has not encountered alien life of any kind, intelligent or otherwise, even though the claims are we've found microbial life or, at the cellular level on Mars or somewhere. Who knows? Personally, I'm not convinced that we've been to Mars. Later for that. Scientists have proposed many solutions for this problem. Perhaps alien life is too different for us to recognize. Intelligent civilizations may tend to self-destruct or go extinct. Maybe there hasn't been enough time for separate worlds to communicate. Some propose that while life might be common, organisms advance enough to communicate off-planet might be almost impossible. Others suggest alien life might be deliberately hiding. But that's what Michio Kaku said. He said, angels could be hiding on the head of a pin somewhere in the universe, But what has become less and less accepted by science and the lay public is that it is scientifically possible and most probable that humanity is unique in all the universe. That's the biblical worldview, right? All we have are assumptions and opinions, and our government is engaged in it. Confirmed planets outside our solar system are surprisingly rare. Again, we have a video on this channel, maybe Summer will put it in the description under where we cover a shorter video where we talk about how SETI in 50 years has found nothing. I've been listening hard for 50 years. They found nothing, but they continue to be funded. Actually, they're not publicly funded anymore. They're funded privately. We've got a whole piece on I forgot his name now. The guy who started SETI, Frank Drake.
Yes.
And the Drake equation, which says there has to be life out there, but it's just an equation.
Well, we also created a playlist, guys, called the Alien Deception, and so we created a playlist of all of the work that we've done over the past year for the alien topic. So definitely check it out.
Romans 8:22 says, "For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now." This implies that if there were any life forms out there on other planets, they would be fallen as well, which would mean they would need a redeemer. But Jesus, who is the second person of the Trinity, is, since his incarnation, death, and resurrection, is permanently incarnate as a man. Colossians 2:9. 1 Corinthians 15:28, Hebrews 7:25. Right? This is important. Jesus died once as the perfect sacrifice for the sins of those who would believe. 1 Peter 2:24. It would seem biblically impossible, God cannot lie, that Jesus would have to die all over again on another world because he's already done that. He is now, when we meet Jesus in the air or wherever, he'll be in the condition of a glorified human being. Now this gets into the hypostatic union, fully God, fully man. That's theology. That's Christology for another time. So we see nothing in Scripture that would indicate that the Father and or the Holy Spirit would be able to die for sins of other beings in other worlds. That's been done. God incarnate, Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus Christ was incarnate, came into the world as a man, lived his life, preached this ministry and gospel, and gave his life on the cross willingly. And then on the third day took it up again in victory over sin and death. So if aliens did exist out there, they would have no redeemer at all, and that would make God a liar. And that's not the case. So we hope this shorter report has been helpful for you. And Summer, anything you'd like to say on the way out today?
God bless you guys, and stay prayed up, and we will see you very soon.
Please download that Armor of Truth mobile app, my friends. Take a moment to like this video, share it, and leave a comment. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. It's free and really does help the channel. Download the Armor of Truth mobile app today. It's 100% free. You're going to get live notifications and a direct link wherever and whenever we go live. Exclusive content, articles, reports, and resources, the Tracking Dystopia podcast, a regular Bible study podcast. If you can support AOT financially, please know every donation or gift makes a difference. And, by the way, thanks again to DC for that super chat, and thanks to Jason again for another very kind donation. Set up a recurring monthly donation to help us if you can. That really helps us plan for the future of AOT. So what are you waiting for? Download the Armor of Truth mobile app now. My name is Brad, and I'm joined by my talented, precious wife, Summer. Together, we're Armor of Truth, and we're seeking a worldview revolution through God's revelation.
Faith is resistance.
God bless you, my friends. We'll see you again next time.
God bless you.
To new heights. To create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.